I should have known something was wrong when I pulled into my driveway that frozen February evening and saw Brenda Sullivan standing on my front porch with a notebook in her hand. The power had been out for 6 hours across our entire subdivision in Naperville, Illinois, thanks to an ice storm that had knocked down power lines throughout the western suburbs of Chicago. I was exhausted from dealing with frozen pipes at my office downtown, and the last thing I needed was the HOA president waiting for me like some kind of suburban welcoming committee from hell. My name is Paul Norton, and I have lived in the Meadowbrook Estates subdivision for 3 years. I bought my house with my late wife, and after she passed away from cancer 2 years ago, this place became both my sanctuary and my prison. The house held memories I treasured, but the HOA made every single day a reminder that I could not just exist in peace. Brenda Sullivan, a 52-year-old woman with a blonde bob that never moved regardless of weather conditions, had made it her personal mission to ensure every homeowner followed every single rule in our thick HOA covenant book. I parked my truck and grabbed my laptop bag, preparing myself for whatever nonsense she was about to throw at me. The temperature was dropping fast, already down to 15 degrees, and my breath created clouds in the darkening air. "Mr. Norton," Brenda called out, her voice sharp enough to cut through the wind. "I need to speak with you about a violation. Brenda, the power is out, it is freezing, and I have had a terrible day. Can this wait?" I trudged through the snow on my walkway, noting that she was wearing a puffy purple coat that made her look like an oversized grape. HOA matters cannot wait. According to Section 12, subsection 4 of our covenants, all window treatments visible from the street must be in neutral colors. Your new curtains are not compliant. I stopped halfway up my porch steps. My curtains? Are you serious right now? I am always serious about HOA regulations. Those dark curtains are an eyesore and affect our property values. Those are thermal curtains, Brenda. They keep my house warm. And they are charcoal gray, which is absolutely a neutral color. I pushed past her to unlock my front door, desperate to get inside. The board will be discussing this at our next meeting. I am documenting this violation. She scribbled something in her notebook with a pen that somehow still worked in the freezing temperature. I did not bother responding. I went inside and shut the door, leaning against it for a moment. My house was already cold, maybe 55 degrees. Without power, my furnace would not run and the temperature would continue to drop. That was exactly why I had spent a small fortune on those thermal curtains 2 weeks ago. Each panel had cost me $850. I had 4 windows facing the street, which meant I had spent $6,800 on just those front windows. The curtains were custom made by a company in New York that specialized in extreme insulation curtains, designed for historic homes and modern efficiency. The fabric contained multiple layers including blackout material, thermal fleece, and a reflective coating that could reduce heat loss by up to 50%. They were not just curtains. They were an investment in my home and my utility bills. I had done my research after last winter when my heating bill hit $400 a month. My house was beautiful but old, built in 1995, and the windows were original. Replacing all the windows would have cost me $30,000. The thermal curtains were a fraction of that cost and made an immediate difference. Now Brenda wanted to tell me they were not allowed because they were too dark. I spent that evening huddled under blankets, eating cold cereal because I could not cook anything. My gas fireplace needed electricity to ignite, which seemed like a design flaw nobody had thought through. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with low battery warnings. I had forgotten to charge it at the office, and now I had maybe 10% left. I turned it off to conserve power and tried to sleep on my couch near the fireplace, even though it was useless. The power came back on around 3 a.m. I woke to the sound of my furnace roaring to life and lights turning on throughout the house. I stumbled around turning everything off except the heat, then cranked the thermostat to 72 degrees and went to my actual bed. The next morning, I woke up warm and comfortable for the first time in almost 12 hours. Sunlight was streaming through the gaps around my thermal curtains, which I had drawn closed the night before to keep in whatever heat I could. I made coffee, took a hot shower, and felt almost human again. Then I opened my front curtains and my stomach dropped. They were gone. All 4 panels of thermal curtains on my front windows were missing. The curtain rods were still there, but the curtains themselves had vanished. I stood there holding my coffee mug, staring at the empty windows, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I ran to check the side windows. Those thermal curtains were still there. The back of the house was fine. Only the front windows, the ones facing the street, the ones Brenda had complained about, were bare. My mind raced. Had someone broken in? I checked my doors. Both were locked from the inside. No broken windows. Nothing else in my house was disturbed. My TV was still there, my laptop, my late wife's jewelry that I kept in a box on my dresser. Nothing else was missing, just the curtains. $6,800 worth of custom thermal curtains. I grabbed my phone and called the police non-emergency line. A dispatcher told me an officer would come by within an hour to take a report. Then I did something I probably should not have done. I went outside in my pajamas and winter coat to look around. My front porch showed footprints in the snow. They were small, maybe a woman's size 7 or 8. They led from my porch steps around the side of my house to the driveway, where they disappeared into the tire tracks and general mess of snow. The prints looked fresh, probably from early this morning. I thought about Brenda standing on my porch last night, complaining about those exact curtains. No, that was crazy. Even Brenda would not break into someone's house to steal curtains she did not like. That was insane. That was criminal. Officer Martinez arrived 45 minutes later. He was a young guy, maybe late 20s, and he looked at me with the patient expression of someone who dealt with suburban nonsense every day. "So someone broke in and only stole your curtains?" he asked, writing in his notebook. I know how it sounds, but these were not regular curtains. Each panel cost $850. They were custom-made thermal curtains. His eyebrows went up. $850 per curtain, per panel. I had 4 panels. That is $6,800 total. He whistled. That is grand theft. Over $1,000, definitely grand theft. Show me these footprints. We went outside and I showed him the prints on my porch. He took photos with his phone and measured them. Women's size 7 looks like. You said your HOA president was here last night. She was complaining about these exact curtains. Said they violated the HOA rules. And you did not give her permission to enter your home or take the curtains. Absolutely not. I was asleep. The power came back on around 3 a.m. Someone must have come after that when I was sleeping. Officer Martinez looked at my front door. No signs of forced entry. Do you have a security system? Cameras? No, I have been meaning to install cameras, but I have not gotten around to it. Do any of your neighbors have cameras that might face your house? I thought about it. The Johnsons across the street might. They have a Ring doorbell. Let me talk to them. In the meantime, I will file this report. Do you have proof of purchase for these curtains? Receipt, credit card statement? Yes, everything. I can email it to you right now. We went back inside and I pulled up my email on my laptop. I forwarded him the invoice from Imperial Thermal Designs in Manhattan, showing the full cost breakdown, shipping, and installation instructions. The curtains had taken 6 weeks to make and arrive. Okay, this is helpful. I am going to talk to your neighbors and see if anyone saw anything. I will also need to speak with your HOA president. Can you give me her contact information? I gave him Brenda's address, phone number, and email. Part of me felt guilty, like I was throwing accusations around without proof. But another part of me remembered her standing on my porch, complaining about those specific curtains, and then those curtains disappearing within hours. After Officer Martinez left, I sat in my living room staring at my bare windows. I felt violated. Someone had been in my house while I slept. Someone had taken something that belonged to me. The fact that it was curtains almost made it worse, because I knew people would think it was weird or funny. But those curtains represented my attempt to make this house comfortable after my wife died, my attempt to save money and be responsible, my attempt to have something nice. My phone rang. It was my neighbor, Tom Johnson, from across the street. "Paul, hey, a cop just came by asking about your curtains. What happened?" I explained the situation. Tom listened, then said, "Man, that is weird. But listen, my Ring camera faces my front door, not your house. I do not think it would have caught anything. But I did see something strange this morning." "What?" "I left for work around 6:30. When I was backing out of my driveway, I saw Brenda Sullivan's car parked in her driveway with the trunk open. She was loading something big into it. I did not think much of it at the time, but it was wrapped in what looked like black plastic bags. My heart started pounding. What time was this exactly? Maybe 6:35. I remember because I was running late. "Tom, can you call Officer Martinez and tell him this? This is important." "Yeah, sure. This is really messed up, Paul. Do you really think Brenda stole your curtains?" "I do not know what to think, but they complained about them yesterday and now they are gone." After Tom hung up, I tried to calm down and think rationally. If Brenda had stolen my curtains, where would she have put them? Her house. That seemed too obvious. Maybe a storage unit, her car. Maybe she planned to throw them away somewhere. But why? Just because they violated some HOA rule. That seemed extreme even for Brenda. Unless she thought she could force me to comply by removing the offending item herself. Maybe she thought I would just assume they fell down or got lost somehow, and I would not report it. She had no idea how much those curtains cost. To her, they were probably just dark curtains from Target or Walmart. She had no concept that each panel cost more than most people spend on furniture. Around noon, Officer Martinez called me back. "Mr. Norton, I spoke with your neighbor Tom Johnson. His information is very helpful. I also attempted to contact Brenda Sullivan multiple times this morning, but she is not answering her phone or door. Do you know if she works?" "She is retired. She is usually home. She works from home doing medical billing part-time, I think." "Interesting. Her car is in the driveway, but no one is answering. I am going to keep trying." In the meantime, I escalated this to our detective unit because of the dollar amount involved. Detective Sarah Chen will probably contact you later today. "Thank you, Officer Martinez. One more thing." I spoke with several other neighbors. A woman named Patricia Lopez, 3 houses down from you, said she saw Brenda's car driving very slowly past your house around 5 a.m. She was up because her baby was crying. She thought it was weird because Brenda usually is not up that early. 5 a.m. The power had come back on at 3. I had probably fallen into deep sleep around 4, exhausted from being cold all night. That would have been the perfect time for someone to enter my house while I was dead asleep. But how did they get in? I checked my doors again. Both were definitely locked. The lock on the front door was original to the house, just a standard deadbolt. Someone with lock-picking skills could have opened it, but Brenda did not strike me as the lock-picking type. Then I remembered. The HOA had a key. When I bought the house 3 years ago, the previous owner mentioned that the HOA kept a spare key to every house for emergencies. I had thought it was weird, but he said it was standard in this neighborhood, something about needing access if there was a water leak or fire, and the homeowners were not home. I had been meaning to change my locks and not give the HOA a key, but I had never gotten around to it. The key was probably in the HOA office, which was really just a small storage unit the board rented in the subdivision. Brenda, as HOA president, had complete access to that office. I called Officer Martinez back and told him about the HOA key. I could hear him sigh. That complicates things legally, but it actually helps establish means. She had a way to get into your house without forced entry. Okay, this is definitely information Detective Chen will want. I am going to include it in my report. The rest of the day dragged. I could not focus on work. I was supposed to be reviewing contracts for a commercial real estate deal, but I kept staring at my computer screen, seeing nothing. I was a project manager for a commercial construction company, and normally, I loved my job. Today, I could not make myself care about HVAC specifications and concrete PSI ratings. Around 3 p.m., Detective Sarah Chen called. She had a calm, professional voice that immediately made me feel like she was taking this seriously. Mr. Norton, I have reviewed Officer Martinez's report and spoken with him about the additional information. I would like to come by and take your statement in more detail, and I would also like to see the scene. Would now be convenient? Yes, absolutely. I am working from home today. She arrived 30 minutes later, a woman in her early 40s wearing plain clothes and a badge clipped to her belt. She had shoulder-length black hair and sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of my house immediately. I walked her through everything again. The power outage. Brenda's complaint about the curtains, waking up to find them gone, the footprints, the HOA key situation. She took notes and asked clarifying questions. You have any kind of relationship with Brenda Sullivan outside of HOA matters? She asked. No, I barely know her. She has cited me for violations a few times since I moved in. Once because my grass was too long when I was out of town for a week. Once because I left my garbage cans out past noon on trash day. That kind of thing. Nothing major. Has she ever expressed any personal animosity toward you? I thought about it. Not really. She is like this with everyone. The whole neighborhood thinks she is difficult, but I would not say she had it out for me specifically, at least not until yesterday with the curtains. Tell me more about these curtains. Why are they so expensive? I pulled out my laptop and showed her the website for Imperial Thermal Designs. I explained the technology, the customization, the energy savings. She looked at the prices and her eyebrows rose slightly. $850 per panel. And you are sure Brenda Sullivan did not know the value? I never told her. And they do not look particularly expensive. They just look like nice, dark gray curtains. There is no branding on them. Unless you know about thermal curtains, you would not know. But she did know you had just installed new curtains. Well, she noticed them enough to complain about them violating HOA rules. Detective Chen walked around my living room, looking at the empty curtain rods. Here is what I am thinking. If Brenda Sullivan took your curtains because she believed they violated HOA rules, that would be theft, but it might be argued as a misguided attempt to enforce rules. However, once we establish the value, we are talking about a Class 2 felony in Illinois. That is 3 to 7 years in prison. My stomach clenched. I do not want to send her to prison over curtains. I just want my curtains back. I understand. But if she committed a felony, that is not really up to you. It is up to the state. However, there might be ways to resolve this that do not involve maximum charges if she cooperates and makes restitution. First, we need to establish whether she actually took them. Tom saw her loading something into her trunk this morning. Right, but we need to confirm it was your curtains. I am going to get a warrant to search her house and vehicle. Based on what we have, I think a judge will grant it. The timing is suspicious. Her complaint about the curtains immediately before they disappeared, her access to your house key, and the witness statement about her loading something into her car. Give me a few hours. After Detective Chen left, I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Relief that someone was taking this seriously, anxiety about what would happen next. I did not hate Brenda. She was annoying and overzealous about HOA rules, but I did not want to ruin her life. I also could not let someone break into my house and steal from me without consequences. Around 6 p.m., my phone rang from a number I did not recognize. I answered cautiously, "Mr. Norton." "This is Brenda Sullivan." Her voice sounded strained, higher pitched than usual. "Brenda, I understand the police are looking for me. I want you to know I have been out all day dealing with a family emergency. My sister in Rockford had a medical issue. I am just now getting these messages." I said nothing. I wanted to hear what she would say. "I also understand you are claiming I stole your curtains." "That is absolutely ridiculous and offensive. I would never steal from a homeowner. I am the HOA president. I uphold rules. I do not break laws." "Then where are my curtains, Brenda? How would I know? Maybe you took them down yourself to frame me because you are angry about the violation notice." My jaw clenched. "Frame you? Are you serious? Why would I get rid of $6,800 worth of curtains to frame you for a crime?" There was silence on the other end. Then, "6,000 what? Each panel cost $850. I had 4 panels. They were custom thermal curtains from a specialty company in New York." More silence. I could almost hear her brain processing this information. "That is ridiculous. No one spends that much money on curtains. I have receipts. I have invoices. The police have all the documentation. I do not know what you are trying to pull, but I did not take your ridiculous curtains, and I will be contacting my lawyer about this harassment." She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, my hands shaking slightly. Her voice had changed when I mentioned the cost. She had sounded genuinely shocked, which meant she probably did take them and she had no idea what they were worth. An hour later, Detective Chen called again. "We have a warrant. We are executing it tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I wanted to give you a heads up in case you see police activity in your neighborhood. Also, if we find the curtains, we will need you to positively identify them. They have a tag sewn into the lining with a serial number matching my invoice. I can send you that serial number." "Perfect. Send that over tonight." I barely slept. I kept imagining different scenarios. What if they did not find the curtains? What if Brenda had already thrown them away? What if she had destroyed them? Those curtains were custom-made for my specific windows. Even if I got money back through insurance or restitution, I would have to wait another 6 weeks for replacements, and it was still the middle of winter. The next morning, I positioned myself by my front window with a cup of coffee, watching Brenda's house across the street and 2 doors down. At exactly 8 a.m., 3 police cars pulled up. I saw Detective Chen and Officer Martinez, plus 2 other officers I did not recognize. They knocked on Brenda's door. After a moment, she answered, wearing a pink bathrobe. Even from this distance, I could see her animated gestures, her mouth moving rapidly. Detective Chen showed her something, probably the warrant. Brenda's body language changed. Her shoulders sagged. The officers went inside. I stood at my window for 45 minutes, drinking coffee and barely breathing. Other neighbors came out of their houses or watched from windows. This was probably the most exciting thing to happen in Meadowbrook Estates, since old Mr. Patterson accidentally drove his Buick through his garage door last summer. Finally, the officers emerged. Two of them were carrying black plastic bags. Large black plastic bags that looked like they contained fabric. My curtains. They loaded them into one of the police cars. Detective Chen spoke with Brenda on the porch for several minutes. Then the officers left and Brenda went back inside, shutting her door hard enough that I could hear it from across the street. 20 minutes later, Detective Chen called me. "Mr. Norton, we found 4 custom curtain panels in Brenda Sullivan's basement. They match the description and have tags with serial numbers. I need you to come to the station to identify them and confirm the serial numbers match your invoice. I will be there in 20 minutes. At the police station, they had my curtains spread out on a table in a conference room. I felt an absurd wave of relief seeing them. They looked undamaged, just slightly wrinkled from being stuffed in plastic bags. I checked the tags. The serial numbers matched. I showed Detective Chen my invoice with the corresponding numbers. These are definitely mine. Are they damaged? They appear to be in good condition. We will hold them as evidence for now, but you should be able to get them back relatively soon. Meanwhile, I need to tell you what Brenda Sullivan told us." We sat down and Detective Chen pulled out her notes. She initially denied taking the curtains. Then, when we found them in her basement, she changed her story. She claims she used the HOA emergency key to enter your house early yesterday morning after the power came back on. She said she believed the curtains violated HOA covenants and she was confiscating them until the next board meeting, where the board would decide whether you could have them back. Confiscating them. She is not the police. She cannot just confiscate people's property. Correct. That is theft. However, her claim is that she believed she had authority under the HOA covenants to remove items in violation of community standards. She said she was planning to return them if the board ruled in your favor. That is insane. The HOA covenant does not give anyone the right to enter homes and take property. We reviewed your HOA covenants. You are correct. There is a provision about the HOA having emergency access keys, but it specifically states they can only be used for genuine emergencies like fires, floods, or gas leaks. Removing curtains does not qualify. So what happens now? Detective Chen leaned back in her chair. Brenda Sullivan is being charged with burglary and theft. The burglary is because she entered your home without permission. The theft is because she took property valued at over $1,000, which makes it felony theft. She also violated Illinois law regarding criminal trespass to residents. We arrested her and she posted bail an hour ago. My head spun. She was arrested. Yes, she will have an arraignment next week. The state's attorney will decide final charges, but based on the value of the items and the circumstances, she is looking at serious charges. Burglary is a Class 2 felony. She could face 3 to 7 years in prison and up to $25,000 in fines. I really do not want her to go to prison for years over this. Is there any way this can be resolved without that? That is not really up to you. Once a felony is committed, the state pursues charges. However, if you are willing to work with the defense attorney on restitution, and you do not push for maximum penalties, and if Brenda has no prior criminal record, she might be able to negotiate a plea deal with probation and community service. But that is between her lawyer and the state's attorney. I left the police station feeling surreal. I had lived in Meadowbrook Estates for 3 years. I had dealt with HOA nonsense the entire time. Never in a million years did I imagine it would escalate to this. My phone started ringing as soon as I got to my car. It was Greg Martinez, one of my neighbors and a member of the HOA board. "Paul, what the hell is going on? Brenda just called me crying, saying she was arrested because of you." I took a deep breath and explained everything. The curtains, the complaint, the theft, the search warrant. "Jesus," Greg said when I finished. "I knew Brenda was intense about the rules, but this is crazy. Listen, there is an emergency HOA board meeting tonight at 7. Can you come and explain what happened? The other board members deserve to hear your side." "Yeah, I will be there." The emergency meeting was held in Greg's basement, which doubled as the neighborhood meeting space since the HOA could not afford to rent anything larger. There were 5 board members total: Brenda, Greg, Martha Richardson, Denise Park, and Tom Johnson, my neighbor who had seen Brenda loading something into her car. Brenda was not there, obviously. The 4 remaining board members sat around a folding table looking uncomfortable. I sat across from them and told the entire story again. When I got to the part about the curtains costing $850 per panel, Martha gasped. Each panel. Brenda thought she was confiscating some cheap curtains from Walmart. She told me earlier today that she was just trying to enforce the rules. "She broke into my house and stole thousands of dollars worth of property," I said. "Whether she knew the value or not does not change that." "You are absolutely right," Greg said. "And speaking for the board, I want to apologize. What Brenda did was completely wrong and not representative of this HOA. She acted alone without board approval, and she violated multiple laws and the trust of this community." Denise cleared her throat. "I move that we immediately remove Brenda Sullivan as HOA president and from the board entirely." "Seconded," Tom said immediately. They voted. It was unanimous. "I also think we need to review all our policies," Martha said. "I did not even know we kept emergency keys to people's houses. That makes me uncomfortable." "We should give the keys back to the homeowners," Greg agreed. "It is a liability and apparently a temptation for abuse. We will send an email to all residents tomorrow offering to return their keys or destroy them if they have changed their locks." The meeting continued for another hour, discussing how to handle the situation, how to communicate with the neighborhood, and whether they needed to hire a lawyer to separate the HOA from Brenda's actions. I mostly listened, still processing everything. As I was leaving, Tom pulled me aside. "Hey man, I am really sorry this happened. For what it is worth, I think most people in the neighborhood are on your side. Brenda has been pissing people off for years." "Thanks, Tom. I just want my curtains back and to feel safe in my house again." "Totally understand. Let me know if you need anything." Over the next week, the neighborhood gossip mill went into overdrive. I had people I barely knew stopping me during my evening walks to express support or ask questions. Some people apparently thought I was being too harsh on Brenda. A few older residents suggested I should drop the charges and handle it privately. I explained each time that I could not drop the charges. The state was pursuing this, not me. And even if I could, why should I? She broke into my house. She stole expensive property. Just because she was a middle-aged woman and HOA president did not put her above the law. Brenda's arraignment happened the following Wednesday. I did not attend, but Detective Chen called me afterward with an update. She pleaded not guilty. Her lawyer is arguing that she believed she had authority to remove the curtains under HOA rules and there was no criminal intent. The state's attorney is not buying it. Trial is set for 2 months from now. 2 months could be longer. Courts are backlogged. But you will get your curtains back next week. We have finished processing them as evidence and the prosecutor has photographs and measurements. You can pick them up at the station anytime after Monday." That Monday, I retrieved my curtains. They were wrinkled but otherwise undamaged. I took them to a professional dry cleaner who specialized in delicate fabrics, explaining they were expensive thermal curtains that needed careful handling. It cost me $200 to have all 4 panels cleaned and pressed, but they came back looking perfect. I rehung them that evening, making sure each panel was positioned exactly right. Standing in my warm living room with the curtains blocking the cold February wind, I felt a sense of victory. These were my curtains in my house, and no one had the right to take them. But I also ordered a complete home security system with cameras, motion sensors, and alerts on my phone. And I called a locksmith to change all my locks. The HOA had sent an email offering to return emergency keys, but I did not trust them anymore. I sent a polite email back declining the return of any key and informing them I had changed my locks. The next 2 months passed in a strange limbo. I went to work, came home, lived my life, but always with this looming court date in the background. Brenda's lawyer reached out to my lawyer. Yes, I had hired a lawyer, asking if I would consider a victim impact statement supporting leniency. My lawyer asked what I wanted to do. "I do not want her to go to prison for years," I said, "but I want her to understand what she did was serious. It was not just about curtains. She violated my home. She made me feel unsafe in the one place I should feel safe. You want restitution. I want my dry cleaning costs covered, $200, and I spent money on the security system and new locks because of her actions. That was about $1,500 total, so $1,700. That is reasonable. I will communicate that you are open to a plea deal involving restitution, probation, and community service, but you want her to take full responsibility for her actions." The trial never happened. 2 weeks before the scheduled date, Brenda's lawyer contacted the state's attorney with a plea deal offer. She would plead guilty to misdemeanor theft and criminal trespass, not the felony charges. In exchange, she would accept 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory counseling, and full restitution to me, including my dry cleaning costs, security system, new locks, and court costs. The state's attorney called me to get my input. "Mr. Norton, this is a significant reduction in charges. The defense is arguing that Brenda Sullivan has no prior criminal record. She is a retired school teacher with an otherwise clean history, and she genuinely believed she had authority to confiscate the curtains. They are also arguing that she did not intend to permanently deprive you of the property. She planned to return them. What do you think?" I asked. "I think we have a strong case for the felony charges." But trials are unpredictable, and juries sometimes sympathize with defendants who seem like normal people who made mistakes. This plea deal guarantees a conviction, guarantees restitution for you, and still gives her a criminal record and consequences. If you are comfortable with it, I am inclined to accept. I am comfortable with it. I never wanted to ruin her life. I just wanted justice and to be made whole. The plea hearing happened on a cold morning in late April. I attended this time, sitting in the gallery while Brenda stood before the judge with her lawyer. She had lost weight and looked older than I remembered. Her blonde bob was slightly messy and she wore a conservative gray suit. The judge reviewed the plea agreement, then asked Brenda directly, "Miss Sullivan, do you understand you are pleading guilty to misdemeanor theft and criminal trespass to residents?" "Yes, Your Honor." Her voice was barely audible. "Do you acknowledge that on February 16th of this year, you entered the home of Paul Norton without his permission and removed property belonging to him?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And do you understand that by entering this plea, You are accepting a criminal record and the consequences outlined in the plea agreement. Yes, Your Honor. The judge accepted the plea and imposed the sentence. 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory counseling, and restitution of $1,700 to be paid within 90 days. Brenda would also have to write a formal apology letter to me, which would be reviewed by the court. After the hearing, Brenda's lawyer approached me in the hallway. "Mr. Norton, my client would like to apologize to you in person if you are willing." I looked at Brenda standing a few feet away, not meeting my eyes. Part of me wanted to just leave and be done with this. But another part of me thought maybe we both needed closure. Okay. We stepped into an empty conference room. Brenda sat down heavily and her lawyer stood by the door. "Mr. Norton, I want to apologize for what I did. I thought I was enforcing HOA rules. I did not think about how wrong it was to enter your house or take your property. I convinced myself it was part of my job as HOA president." She finally looked at me, and her eyes were red. "I had no idea those curtains were so expensive. I thought they were maybe $50 each from Target. When you said they cost almost $7,000 total, I nearly fainted. I would never have taken them if I had known." "That is not really the point," I said. "The cost matters legally, but even if they had been $50 curtains from Target, you still had no right to break into my house and take them. You violated my privacy and my security." I know that now. I have been going to therapy. I think I got so caught up in the HOA rules that I lost perspective on what really matters. I made homeowners miserable over lawn height and garbage cans. I made you feel unsafe in your own home. I am so sorry." I studied her face. She seemed genuinely remorseful. "I accept your apology. I hope you use this experience to reevaluate your priorities." "I will. And for what it is worth, I resigned from the HOA board entirely. I am never serving on another board or committee. I just want to live my life and leave my neighbors alone." We left the courthouse going separate directions. I never saw Brenda Sullivan again in any meaningful way. I glimpsed her occasionally in the neighborhood, usually getting into her car or checking her mail, but we never spoke. She kept her distance, and I preferred it that way. She paid the restitution in full within 30 days. I received a check in the mail with a handwritten note that simply said, "I am sorry for everything." I deposited the check and filed the note away with all the other paperwork. From this bizarre incident, life slowly returned to normal. Spring arrived, the snow melted, and my thermal curtains kept my house comfortable as the weather warmed. I adjusted them to let in more light during the day and closed them at night, amazed at how much difference they made to my heating and cooling costs. The new HOA board, now led by Greg Martinez as president, operated completely differently from Brenda's regime. They sent out a survey asking homeowners what rules actually mattered to them. It turned out most people cared about safety issues and property maintenance, but did not care about curtain colors or the exact height of grass. The board revised the covenants, stripping out the most ridiculous rules and focusing on things that actually affected property values and quality of life. When they sent the new draft covenants to all homeowners for approval, I read through them carefully. The section about window treatments had been reduced to a single sentence that basically said homeowners could not hang sheets or blankets in windows facing the street. Actual curtains of any color or style were explicitly allowed. There was also a new section clarifying that the HOA could only enter homes with express written permission or in genuine emergencies with law enforcement present. I voted yes on the new covenants. They passed with 87% approval. Throughout the summer, I focused on making my house truly my own. I had been stuck in a weird limbo since my wife died, keeping everything exactly as it had been when she was alive. The curtain incident, as strange as it was, had jolted me into taking action. I could not control everything that happened to me, but I could control my space and my response. I repainted the bedroom in colors I liked, not the sage green my wife had chosen. I bought new furniture for the living room, comfortable pieces that suited my taste. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a 3-year-old mutt named Cooper who loved thermal curtains because he could nap in the warm spots where sunlight filtered through. I also got more involved in the neighborhood, not through the HOA but through informal connections. I started joining Tom's weekly poker game. I helped Martha Richardson fix her fence after a storm. I became part of the community in a real way, not just a homeowner following rules but a neighbor building relationships. In August, Greg stopped by with a 6-pack of beer and a question. "Hey, we are looking for someone to fill an empty spot on the HOA board. You interested?" I laughed. "After everything that happened, you want me on the HOA board?" "Honestly, yeah. You understand the importance of rules, but you also understand the importance of reasonableness and respecting people's property and privacy. We need people like you." I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. "Thanks, but no. I appreciate what you are trying to do with the HOA, but I think I am better as just a regular homeowner. I will come to meetings if something important comes up, but I do not want the responsibility." "Fair enough. Offer stands if you change your mind." We sat on my porch drinking beer and talking about nothing important, and it felt good. Normal. This was what a neighborhood should be. One evening in late September, almost exactly 7 months after the curtain incident, I was closing my thermal curtains for the night when I noticed an unfamiliar car parked across the street. A woman got out, mid-30s, looking at houses with a real estate agent. New buyers checking out the neighborhood. I wondered if anyone would tell them about the HOA drama earlier that year. Probably not. It would become neighborhood legend eventually, the story of the HOA president who stole expensive curtains and got arrested. People would laugh about it at block parties and use it as a cautionary tale about HOA overreach. I hoped the new buyers had better luck than I did. I hoped they got to just live their lives without drama. Cooper barked at the window, wanting his dinner. I closed the curtains completely, sealing in the warmth and the light, and went to feed my dog. My house felt safe. My space felt like mine. The thermal curtains hung perfectly in every window, doing their job of keeping me comfortable. Brenda Sullivan completed her community service that fall, working at a food bank and a homeless shelter. I heard this through the neighborhood grapevine, not from her directly. She apparently did the work without complaint and showed up early for every shift. Her probation officer reported that she was complying with all requirements. I did not particularly care. She was no longer my problem. She had paid her debt to society and to me. What she did with the rest of her life was up to her. In November, the first cold snap of the season hit Chicago, and my thermal curtains proved their worth once again. My heating bill was half what my neighbors were paying. When Tom complained about his gas bill hitting $300, I smiled and said nothing. Some things were worth the investment. A year after the incident, I received a letter in the mail with no return address. Inside was a greeting card with a generic "thinking of you" message. Handwritten inside was a note from Brenda. "Mr. Norton, I am writing to let you know I completed my probation early for good behavior. I am moving to Arizona to be closer to my sister and start fresh somewhere without the memories of my mistakes. I wanted to thank you for not pushing for the maximum charges. I know I did not deserve your mercy. I also wanted you to know that what happened changed my life. I am a better person now. I hope you are doing well. Sincerely, Brenda Sullivan. I read the note twice, then filed it away with the rest of the paperwork from that strange chapter of my life. I hoped she really had changed. I hoped Arizona gave her the fresh start she needed. As for me, I was doing more than well. I was doing good. Great even. Cooper was snoring on the couch. My house was warm and comfortable. My curtains hung in the windows, beautiful and functional, worth every penny I had paid for them. The HOA continued operating smoothly under Greg's leadership, focused on actual issues rather than petty complaints. Property values in the neighborhood increased slightly, probably because word got out that the crazy HOA president was gone and things were normal now. I sometimes thought about writing a review of Imperial Thermal Designs, the company that made my curtains. 5 stars would recommend. They survive theft and police evidence processing. But that seemed weird, so I never did. Instead, I just enjoyed my curtains every day, opening them to let in light, closing them to keep in warmth, appreciating that sometimes the things we invest in really do pay off, and not always in the ways we expect. Life in Meadowbrook Estates went on. People mowed their lawns and walked their dogs. Kids rode bikes in the street. The new neighbors moved in and seemed nice. Nobody broke into anyone's house to steal curtains, and every night I closed my thermal curtains, locked my door with my new locks, and felt safe in my home. That was worth more than $850 per panel. That was worth everything.